and you'll know exactly who they are. All right.
Well,
So
I'm so excited for these two today. I love hearing them speak. And for those that don't know, Steve and Terri Cowan own Professional Salon Concepts, and their mission, which I just read today and I was like, wow, this is so cool, to grow this industry one hairdresser at a time through a balance of technical skills, training, and business savvy. And, you know, Steve just literally can change a business by just a few words, and they always put their customers first. And, you know, Terry's been a salon industry's leading speaker for many, many years, because she's common sense approach, no nonsense, right to the point. She's funny, she's real. We are just so excited to have them both here with us today. So welcome, Steve and Terri.
Thank you so much for having us, Sean and Tina. This is an honor to be
absolutely
be part of this, and especially on your kickoff show. We apologize for the technical difficulties.
For Terri.
Rather than take any more time, we bailed out, and she has to sit next to me during this. So
yeah.
Hey,
God bless Terri.
You can elbow them that way. You can elbow them.
I can hit it. I can hit him.
Totally works. Before we kind of jump in, you know, we had the privilege of hearing you speak last week, Steve, and it's interesting because right before we got on that call, Tina and I were doing a podcast about transparent leadership, and what you did on that call and what you spoke about your experiences, you really just represented transparent leadership. So why do you think that, you know, as we kind of transition the way we used to lead versus the way we do, how important is transparent leadership in the leadership of your companies?
It's become everything, to be honest, and it's also such a huge commitment to transparency. It's a word that's used, it seems, in every aspect of every newscast, of every company, of every staff and team, of every, really, you know, from a race standpoint or a racial standpoint. People are asking for transparency. And I think in the past, we were maybe raised in such a way that maybe we were raised in a need to know basis. I don't think our house was centered around transparency. I think there were things that mom and dad knew that was just considered better off, that us kids didn't know. And I think that that's the leadership and management style that a lot of us carried into our businesses. And it worked for a lot of years. The real key is it's not working now. And even in cases, you know, I'll give you an example. We reached out last week to we're located, one of our schools is in DuPage County, and the other school is in Chicago, here in Illinois. And we had a couple of situations. One with people in Chicago that broke the travel ban, two future professionals that they didn't break the travel ban. They traveled to hotspots and came back. And in Chicago, you need to quarantine for 14 days. Well, in our screening questions, that's one of the first things we ask. And unfortunately, they didn't tell the truth. And we found out by them telling other people during the day that they didn't tell the truth. And so it's, okay, what do we do? What are we required to do? And how transparent are we required to be? And interestingly enough, the Chicago Department of Public Health said that unless someone presented with COVID-19 symptoms or they were symptomatic, that we did not need to be transparent. We didn't need to tell the school. And the reality is, in our world right now, there's so much fear. And as we all know, fear sometimes is a misuse of our imagination. But there's so much fear that you don't have a choice whether you announce that to the student, to the future professionals, and to the, excuse me, to the team, because it's going to travel its own way, regardless. If we wouldn't have been transparent with our team, those two would have been by word of mouth. They'd have been on ventilators.
Well, and that's a
by
great
the end
way
of
of
the
saying
day.
it. You know, if you don't address it or have transparency, it's going to travel with or without your approval and or your intentions or without your guidance. And so therefore, putting it out there so you can have influence on the way people are perceiving it is huge.
Yeah, it's a choice. It really is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a choice as to whether your constituency knows or don't know. They're going to know regardless. And so do they hear it from you, or do they hear it from someone else? And if they hear it from someone else, it breaks down the trust factor in business. And we all, trust is our currency. If our team doesn't trust us, if our future professionals don't trust us, it's impossible to grow a business.
Yeah. What has it been like for all of your salons that you guys oversee? How many salons do you oversee in your PSC company?
Several thousand.
Several thousand. Okay. So what has it been like? Have some of them had to shut down for the 14 days? Have some of them shut down permanently? What has it been like for you guys there in Chicago?
There's a few that shut down permanently. There are, because of the travel ban, no one has had to shut down that I'm aware of, within our base. We have had people, though, that have had stylists that have had to quarantine for the 14 days.
Okay.
And luckily there were enough hairdressers and or barbers on staff that the salon stayed open. It's just that the revenue from those particular stylists didn't happen.
Yeah.
And
What
it's obviously missed, of course.
Sure.
Of course. Yeah. So how has it been for some of the salons? Have they been able to make it financially? Are they doing better, worse? Where are they at right now on the scale?
A few have stayed the same in revenue. And I think that those are people that have either really well executed plans that they're following. And I think that the other thing is that, for example, Chicago has to operate on a 25% occupancy.
Okay.
And so imagine how many of our businesses, including all the listeners, how many of our businesses could operate on 25% occupancy?
No.
It's hard to cover the expense of opening the door and turning the lights on. In the rest of the state of Illinois, we're at 50% occupancy.
But occupancy is a funny word because it has nothing to do with the amount of stations you have. It has to do with what was occupancy deemed by the fire department to receive your license. One of the qualifiers. And so if they say 80 people can be in here, so 25% capacity is 20. But so many people heard that as number of stations, number of chairs, right?
Well, because it had with it, the guidelines for Chicago and for Illinois originally said decommission half of your stations, decommission half of your shampoo bowls, literally, and they suggested physically taking them out of the business if at all possible.
Wow.
And so that's where, when they said half, and then they said 25% occupancy, many of the salons put that together, saying, take out half your chairs and only fill half the chairs that you have left, instead of really looking and saying, what is the occupancy? There were other things that I think all states have had to, and I want to take a second just to say, God bless the salons in California and schools in California and Oregon that have, once again shut down due to the rise in COVID. They had just reopened, and I don't think they were open for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that happened. So I can't imagine. I know how hard it was after 3 months of being closed, and then to reopen. And if 2 weeks later we were told you got to shut it down again, of course, hairdressers are great citizens, first of all. And of course, they're going to close down as, as directed for the better good of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it's easily survivable. And it also doesn't mean that our government's going to be able to properly prop up all the businesses that have been harmed. So with that in mind, you asked about how have they done. There have been some salons again that opened up and are doing, have been able to match revenues with lesser man hours, with less hours worked. The ones that limited their menu, I think, were better able to serve their customer base, because to open up kind of in that full service mode created a scheduling nightmare because of the pent up demand
Mm-hmm.
from not being in the salon. And you just can't do every service when you're limited to one guest at a time.
The example we gave when we were encouraging people to come back was, it might still apply to those people that are struggling. I can remember in restaurants when the demand was really, really high, and they would be high on, Mother's Day or New Year's Eve or other specialty events, Sweetest Day, Valentine's Day. And during those times, we would limit the menu because it would increase our efficiencies. And as a reminder of what we're trying to accomplish in here is to create, and this is what we would do in the restaurant, create a high demand of traffic. We knew that was going to happen. So how do we increase our efficiencies was limiting the menu, less moving parts in the back of the house to facilitate the front of the house. And so what we encouraged is maybe coming back and at first not open the menu completely, but maybe just for color touch-ups and cutting only during this time. And that really helped salons that did that, because it really allowed you to manage the moving parts in a controlled way versus having it open to craziness. I mean, throw a corrective color in there, or throw in anything that would upset the battle. No, not upset the battle, upset the status quo of what you're trying to accomplish. And you can't manage it. And then people say, well, this is our favorite customer, so we're just going to do her. No, it opens up to every favorite customer now needs special attention. And now you're back to the same thing. And there's a cost.
Well, Terry, we're also in an industry where every guest should feel like they are your favorite guest. So if that becomes the, kind of the balancing, good luck, because they all think they are, as they should.
Yeah. I love that you talked about the ones that are doing the same. You said doing the same. I'm assuming you're saying that there isn't anyone doing better than they were before. Let's talk about,
but they're anomalies. They're one-offs.
The anomalies. Because to me, that's just probably one degree of difference, right? It's just the little shifts that they had to make. So let's talk to the salon owners right now. What shifts can they make right now to be just like those anomalies that you're talking about, to be more effective, to be more efficient? In your opinion, what needs to happen, Steve and Terri?
Well, I would start with the fact that the first thing we need to realize is that there's a degree of this COVID comeback that is absolutely scientific safety. And then there's just as important a process of optics. Okay, so there's reality in safety, and then there's how do we protect the optics to our guests so that they feel more safe.
Well, and I think when you put it out there, that's why we were encouraging people to say, this is how we're going to come back. This is how we're going to serve the masses that are loyal to our salon. This is how we're going to create safety inside the salon for our team, for our guest, therefore the community. These are the things that we're going to do, and we need your support. And perhaps some of you didn't do that. So now you're thinking, are you kidding me? Because there's a price for this. There's a price on just the your ability to serve, your ability to take care of the guest. And so therefore, when we were thinking through these things, maybe limiting the blow dry, limiting some steps would be able to give us the full attention and take care of that demand. And we didn't do it at the expense of anyone. We did it for everyone in the circle. And so maybe you came back thinking, I don't want to upset anything and I just want to come back. Well, you know, there's a price for that. So now how do you go back? You could go to a limited menu now. You could call it back to school limited menu. I don't care what you call it.
You could call it an immediate response to the new information.
Exactly.
The cases are growing in many of our states, and we're going to be ahead of it. This is the list of things we're going to do that's new as of now.
And we need your support.
Yeah. I know some of our states are struggling, Steve and Terri, they've seen all of their guests and now they're getting a slowdown. So are you suggesting that building this idea of, hey, this is safe for you to come here? So talk about that. Pretend you're that salon owner. What would they say to their guests on social media, phone calls? What should they say to their guests? What should they be doing, implementing right now so the guest feels comfortable? Because I know in our state in Florida, that some of our guests aren't feeling comfortable and coming back. They came the initial time, now they're not feeling comfortable coming back. So talk to those salon owners in Florida in particular right now.
Before you go into this, you know, it's funny, Tina, because what I've witnessed is the effort, the absolute effort that salons and businesses alike, service businesses have done to try to go after this. The easiest place they knew how to do it was with the facility, the steps of the service that the facility could help, whether it's wait in your car, please call us, the temperature read, the wash your hands when you arrive, always wearing a mask, so on and so forth. What happened is they received pushback from their customers and people saying, I don't want to wear a mask, or I'm not going to wait in the car, I'm just going to knock on the door and come in anyway, or not being truthful and not wanting to sign, or you've known me for 30 years, I'm not signing that, how I feel today. The customers are the one that pushed back. And you would think that people would be in support, but you have to ask for it every visit. We need your support here. I know this is difficult. I know this is hard on you. It's hard on us too, but together we can make this work. And, but you can't say it just the first time. It has to be every time. Now what happens is businesses grow tired of asking, and they grow tired of the pushback, and who doesn't want peace?
And that's terrible optics.
Absolutely optic, because everyone's watching.
Yeah.
And so if we look at it, and Terry's 100% right on what she said, that not only businesses are growing weary of either the safety protocols that are in place, so are the guests.
Absolutely.
However, we think they're growing tired of it, but they won't come back to us unless we have it.
Right.
So that's a huge thing to realize. Sometimes we think great guest service is that we do look the other way on masks, or we do look the other way on some of our protocols we put in place. This is a time, especially in Florida, and the states that are increasing, and Illinois is starting to increase again. So is Indiana, our two states. Mm-hmm. They're starting to increase, not as dramatically, but it's going to hit here. And so what do we need to put in place now? So what we would suggest is that, first of all, write your safety pledge. That should be your social story right now.
And display it, and have it displayed everywhere, and socially, in the salon, in the back room. It could be stamped, or you could have a little printout and present it as a farewell, our pledge, and thank you for supporting it. I mean, there's so much you could do with it.
Many of your computer systems, salon POS systems, allow you to put a specialized message on their receipt. I would put that, if you mean it, put that everywhere that you can.
And you're living by it. And you absolutely have the courage to protect that pledge and have to say, you can't be serviced today. I'm so sorry.
Sometimes it means sending a guest away.
Yeah.
And that's tough, but that's right as well. So in addition to that, I think that right now does call for a response. If you're going to work kind of and making the donuts in the new normal, that's not good enough right now.
And you might just want to do a posting about a recap of the last 60 days. This is what's happened. This is how many guests we've seen.
Great idea.
Right? And then just give them and you can post it socially. Thank you for all those that trusted us. Thank you for helping us recreate safety as we found out new things that were mandated, but also things we knew would be helpful. I mean, there's so many things you can do with it.
Yeah.
I also think it's every salon's responsibility to train the new norm, to train the protocols for their staff. Don't think that just because you've read what the government has put out, what your state government has put out, and you've responded to it, don't think that they have read it or understand why you've responded in the way you have. So to me, anytime you move, some states call it stages, some states call it phases, but for example, right now we're in stage 4.5 in Indiana. We're in phase 4 in Illinois, and we're also in phase 4 in Chicago. Because Chicago has its own plan.
Even last night, the mayor has made changes. So what are those changes, and shouldn't some of those changes be posted if it affects your community?
So how quickly do we get that information out? And when you get that information out, you hold a staff meeting, and it's socially distanced.
You could do a Zoom.
You could do it. You at least want to take a photo of it to get that into your guests' site, to get it into their feeds that says, yep, my salon, I can count on them. They're doing everything they possibly can to make it right. The other thing to consider is the outliers have definitely taken the stance of realizing that it's harder to work right now. Working with a mask,
well, and they're building camps
is very difficult. Those salons, and the majority are blow drying with the masks on. That's difficult. It also cuts down your guest per man hour ratio, the number of guests you can have in that shortened period of time, seeing them one at a time. The outliers have said, you know what, we're going to, for right now and the foreseeable future, we're going to eliminate the blow dry.
Absolutely. You know, I had my nails done, just a polish change on Friday. And I went back to the drying area for natural nails, and she's got a light on to help dry. And I said, where are the fans? She said, for your safety, we're not using them right now. I said, thank you. That's it. I didn't say, well, turn the fan on. I didn't, right?
Safety.
For your safety and ours, we're not using them right now.
And you know, I just have to tell you personally where I started with this, because Terri and I started doing Facebook Lives 3 times a week, March 20th. And so my initial stance personally on blow drying was, it's an important part of the service. We need to keep it. And my belief system was changed on that as time went on. Because first of all, when you're asking a team of people to come back and working a limited amount of time, they're generally, the salons that are outliers have their staff working fewer hours than what they were working in shifts, you know, whether it be 3 days one week, 4 days the next, 3 days the week after that, 4 days the next, working 5 and 6 hour shifts. We found that to be really productive, because the staff maintains its energy level, which means they can maintain their service level and their service commitment and commitment to the protocols. There's little things, you know, and this may sound like a little thing, but every time a guest, or I'm sorry, the future professional or the stylist walks away from the guest, and they come back, even if it's to get a product, if it's to get a bowl of color, if it's whatever they do, the very first thing they need to do is sanitize their hands.
Just like a dentist's office.
And that's real, and it's optics. But how many of them do it? How many of them are disciplined, and they've made that their discipline in order to do that? How much of the time have we really eliminated the gatherings, the people who don't have a guest right at this moment? Our salons, our staffs, they're friends. They want to see each other. They were just on stay-at-home order. But that's dangerous to the eye of the consumer coming in to our salon.
So
to our business.
Here's my favorite.
It's good.
Here's my favorite. Stay in the car, and we will text you, or we'll come out and get whatever the answer is. Okay. So they got pushback because people didn't want to stay in the car. So now they're going to move chairs outside the salon and put them in the sidewalks and so on and so forth. And here's a chair, and 6 feet over is another chair. So now you go without a waiting area because you don't want a common area in your salon, but you just created a common area outside your salon with no disciplines for sanitation. What? Help me understand that. So I walk up to the door, and they say, "Thank you for letting us know, and you can sit here," only because they were pushed back. I wouldn't have put chairs out there. Heck no, I wouldn't have put chairs out there. And if I did put them out there, I better have a commitment to show that I'm going to sanitize after every single person sits down. That's not being done. So you received the pushback, and you created a look of lack of safety.
So to kind of summarize, what would you do right now to make the biggest difference? Look at a safety pledge. Look at training your team as to the most current protocols that the state's requiring. And every time you switch a phase or a stage, you educate your team and make adjustments to your protocols. And
they better be saying, when a customer pushes back, "Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support." We're not going to lessen our commitment to safety for all of us.
And and here's the other thing.
Versus saying, "Yeah, I don't want to do it either."
We've become accustomed to stages and phases in coming back. Why haven't salons adopted their own stages and phases in coming back?
Call yours stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and name them and what the customer can expect. And even if you don't know what phase 2 is going to be, we're in phase 1 right now, and then we're creating our adjustments in phase 1. When we go to phase 2, this is what we'll look like. And for an example, maybe phase 3 for you is you're going to blow dry again. We don't know that yet. I mean, people say the easy ones were the commitment of closing down common areas. We're not serving coffee anymore. We're not going to have a waiting area. Some of the things were kind of easy. And I had my nails done. Nails were allowed to open before salons.
Go figure.
That's shocking. It wasn't like that for us.
Don't ask.
In Florida.
So I said, "Steve, I've got to go have my nails done to watch this."
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with the owner. Now, this is a business that does normally, what is it, Steve, 1,500 customers a week?
Wow.
It's the biggest nail salon I've ever seen.
$3 million, right? And so I walked in, and the owner, we're not friends, but he knows who we are. And so he walked over and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think you're doing a great, I can see the effort. You put a lot of effort into this, plexiglass and between the nail stations and so on and so forth." And I said, "But you didn't know what to do with your customer. You just didn't know what to say. The physical structure you had a handle on, but you didn't train your team how you have to ask for support, and we're not going outside and blah, blah, blah." So that was the hardest part. And you know who was really the worst? Were the elderly. The elderly were the worst. just mad. And I
Yep.
thought, oh my goodness,
Because, yep. So,
they
yeah.
don't want to do it, you know.
Everyone, if you want to type in the chat box, if you're experiencing all of this as well too, and if you
Oh,
are
congratulations.
blow drying, I'd love to hear if you're blow drying too. I'd like to hear that part of the facet. And something that you guys said, which I think is going to really pull this together. And you said, if you mean it. And so I went to the dentist, got my teeth cleaned. I come from a dental background, so I'm very, very well versed in protective equipment. It's never was an issue for me. And I felt as a salon owner and a school owner that helped me because I got to share that story with my teams, right?
Good.
And so I have a lot of conviction, right, with it. And so, you know, you walk in, I don't think they're having a challenge with their guests. I haven't seen that with their clients, right? And patients, whatever you want to call them. But why are salon owners and stylists having so much challenge with that? Like you said, if you mean it, I think it comes with confidence. So let's talk to the salon owner right now. Let's talk to the stylist right now to gain that confidence when you're speaking. Maybe you need to practice in front of a mirror. Maybe you need to videotape yourself, you know, practice over and over and over. Do I look convincing to you guys right now? And so what do I look like? What's my nonverbal saying? Because that's what's going to bring that guest back and make them feel safe. I go to a dentist that I feel safe with. I go to a doctor I feel safe with. It's about confidence. Think of yourself as a doctor and a lawyer. Let's talk about that. What kinds of things do salon owners need to implement to build that confidence amongst their people?
Well, here's before we go into that, I want to say something. When the lettuce outbreak happened in the world, right, and no one could have I can't even remember how long it was, but restaurants didn't say we're going to serve salad anyway, right?
Exactly.
So everyone knew. I mean, we're not having lettuce right now, and we're not having, and we've all gone through these times. But because this affects everything, absolutely everything, this is when people, it could be that they don't understand. Why we're posting all of these updates is because we want to create awareness for people that don't have awareness. And as a result, we're not doing it. It's not political for us. It's all based on safety and knowledge, you know, really is going to help during this time. And it keeps our staff on the same page. Now, let's talk about the confidence issue. I think a dental office has an advantage because the customer's mouth is usually either numb or open and they can't talk gossip and goo.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of it, it keeps the relationship more professional.
Yeah.
We've created some of this. We've created it by getting too close to our customer, thinking that's the way in which we should serve, is having all of these best friend relationships. So when they have a struggle, we're supposed to fix it. Or when they have a struggle or they're not in agreement with our policy, they think they can voice it with ease. And then most young people, you know, they don't know how to disagree with kindness. They don't know how to disagree with gentleness.
There you go.
And I'm working on that myself.
Steve's like, yes, remember what you just said.
and because they don't know what to do, they bail out.
Yeah. No, that's really good. You hit something really good. So in the beginning, Sean's question was being transparent and what that looks like. And so Sean and I we're going to be posting a podcast on this of how to build appropriate, solid relationships with your team. How do you build appropriate, solid relationships with your guests, right? So let's hit on that, because I think this is huge, because I think it's everything. I think many salon owners, many owners, many leaders get too close to their team, so to speak, where they can't have those radical candor or crucial conversations, whatever they are, to be able to have, because they become friends. And so we've got to be careful about that. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know you guys are experts in this area.
Experts. Okay.
Something, Tina, that I want to say about that is that sometimes closeness can create casual.
Mm-hmm.
And if a salon owner feels that they're close to their team, they can come off very casual. because they think, oh my gosh, you're my friend. If this is what I say we're going to do, this is what we're going to do because you care about me and I care about you, and we're going to go serve the customer. Well, the reality is that they're probably hearing some things in this time that they've never heard from their friends.
Yeah.
And so it takes, if we come about it in a casual sense, they'll respond in a casual sense, which means if I can do it, I will. I mean, I get it, it makes sense, but you know, I know my customers and my customers, blah, blah, blah. Instead of training it, it's as important as body position, as the tools that we use, the learning the law color. It's every bit as important. The way we escort a guest through our salons, and the protocols that we use and why we use them. And it's also the reality to know that the most difficult thing for someone is they can learn it in their mind. They hear it, they accept it mentally, but until it travels the last 12 inches to their heart, it's not real.
They're not going to own it. Well, the other thing is, you know, leadership is a funny thing. And if people know your intentions, absolutely understand your intentions, they can handle your words. And it's when they don't know your intentions, whether it's to make the boat go faster, help us win a championship, have us be a better version of ourselves, excel, what is it going to take? And what are we all willing to risk? I mean, those kind of things, if they know your intention, they can handle your words. But if you're not stating your intentions over and over again, and I mean, everyone knows between us, and I kind of know why, but my word's going to be probably a little sharper and a little quicker than his. And could that be taken in a negative way? Sure it could. If you go back and say, she's just bringing this to our attention because we want to make the boat go faster, right? Or she's doing this because she's trying to protect the plate. And so intentions are really key. When you have friendship, I mean, I love the people I work with. I mean, I really enjoy them. And a lot of times you have to ask them to be brutally honest too. Like, what are you thinking on this? What's your first reaction when you hear that? And so many times the staff lets us talk and we don't get them to talk. And so you have to really ask them, you know, what's your viewpoint? I've got some very quiet processors at the table. And I'm just going to talk about the 7 people that report to us. And they're quiet unless I say, Lou, what do you think? Mm-hmm. Trish, what do you think? And when I do, they'll tell you, but boy, they're not going to just put it out there. Where I would, and they won't, but their insight is as equally as important, even though they're quiet at first.
Love that.
Yeah, trying to build that appropriate solid relationship. So what does that look like for you, and what do you recommend for salon owners and salon leaders? What would the day in the life look like as far as building those relationships, of being able to have that type of candor? And I think, honestly, Steve and Terri, I think one of the reasons that a lot of salon stylists are leaving the teamwork atmosphere and going into their own salon suites is because of this
Absolutely.
issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that people might complain about leadership, but they crave it.
Yes.
Absolutely crave it. And you have to know your role, that at any time. I mean, we just did an intensive workshop, the 2 of us, for 3 days. So we're still learning, and boy, they hit some topics that we both weren't ready to hear that really, really helped us. Let me give you one of mine. I'm always, as a leader, and I think I learned it from the restaurant industry too, be ready. You don't know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. You don't know. I'm more on the alert. right?
Be ready.
I'm ready. It's the perfect storm always. Something could happen. And so I'm always in a very protective mode, absolutely protective, watching closely, always looking at the conditions of what is. Does my staff know that? Probably not. Do they need to know it? Yeah, they do. Because it helps. It's more insight into me. But I think that when people know your intentions, and they know you're fighting to bring out the greatness in them, there's something really powerful for that.
So constantly sharing your vision, constantly sharing what you're about or what you see, right? Because leaders see more and more and more before, I always say. And so it's so important to be in front of your people. Don't be silent. Share your intentions with them all the time, always. How about you, Steve? What was your biggest lesson in your intense leadership?
Oh my gosh. my biggest lesson really was realizing that there was a link between my leadership today and what I experienced as a child that has influenced and brought about ways that I lead that I was unaware of. I mean, the choices that I make are influence. It's kind of like that. What I said the other day is that there's biases that we have that we don't know. We just have them, and few of us ever have the opportunity to kind of peel that back and say, where did that come from, and what are my truths? Mm-hmm. And once I understand what my truths are, and truths can be in you personally, it starts with self, but then it also is in my relationships. It also is in our businesses. What are your truths? You as salon owners, you have truths, you have things. We've referred to them before as non-negotiables. Those are close to your truth, those things that raise your emotion. And you want to build a wall around those things that say, this has to exist in our business, or I can't handle it. Yeah. I can't keep you here. Mm-hmm. You cross that line, I can't keep you here. And we think sometimes that just having a vision is enough, and just stating that vision over and over again, that's a part of it. You will tire saying it long before they tire hearing it. But the reality is that with that vision comes choices, disciplines, protocol, etc. Sometimes in order to keep peace, we give up on an important point, or we let something pass, and we negotiate off of our belief because we want to keep peace.
Yes.
And the reality is that those boundaries and those expectations are so important. And once we've set them out there, your team's going to be watching to say, do you live it? Are you living what you say? And that's where sometimes, when you really think about it, that's where we lose the respect and the trust of our teams, is when we negotiate off of that we said was important.
Wow. That's powerful. Okay, so the truths are your non-negotiables, they're your boundaries, they're your expectations. Am I living what I say? Wow. Be the example, right? Talk about your non-negotiables as a business owner, that you, and I love that you said, if someone crosses the line, I can't keep you here if they cross the line. And so, like you said, we keep peace, so we keep people longer than we should. And so, because we didn't have that radical candor, and I've been caught so many times, not doing that. What are some of your truths, your non-negotiables, Steve and Terri, that you have set in your businesses that are boundaries that are important to you?
Well, again, starting with our distribution business, education business for hairdressers already licensed. One is they must love hairdressers and barbers. We can't tell that in an interview. There's no way, there's no question we can ask to know for sure if they're going to fall in love with hairdressers.
And have fun in our business. Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable. And we've had people, I've had that in an exit interview before, where people have said to me, Steve, I just didn't fall in love with the hairdresser the way you did. And that's okay. It's not okay that they stayed working for us if that was the case. So that's one thing. Another thing is they have to have integrity and truth. So some of these things are pretty, they're pretty basic. Who wouldn't want that? You want that from a friend. You want that from a spouse. You want loyalty. You want
Loyalty's big for me, and respect. And I think respect is huge. And how do you show that? I think that when you look at manners or people talking right to your face versus behind your back, I think that's powerful, especially with women. I mean, Sean and Steve can't relate to this comment, but for women, it's huge, because if I don't have enough of your ear, I'll find an ear. And usually it's not the right ear that's not qualified to help me. And so what they do is they start talking and inferring. And I know people need a confidant, but is it the right confidant that can help them? And a leader's job is to make sure that their head is right. There's so many times when a walkout takes place, and sometimes we find out about it before the owner, and it's a fundamental value of ours that as soon as we know, we tell the person that told us, you've got 24 hours to tell your owner, or we will, because our allegiance starts with our owners always. And I've had to call where I'll hear, did they tell their owner? No, they were afraid. Okay, well, guess what? I get to call the owner today. So I call the owner, and the first thing I say is, any turnover happening right now? No, well, let me tell you, there is. And this is who's leaving. And sometimes I have to say, 2 employees. And the phone goes absolutely silent, as you can imagine, right? Yeah. And then I say, where are you right now? And then they'll say, I can't talk. And I'll say, did you notice any behavioral changes with this person? Did you notice anything starting to happen? Because everyone shows you. Steve always says, success leaves clues. Well, so does change. Change leaves clues too. And so you've got to check in. How are you? Are you fulfilled? Or you have any frustrations I need to know about? What's happening? I mean, I'm doing facilitating a meeting with our directors, and that's what I'll talk about. What frustrations do you have? What are you carrying around that's really heavy right now that fires you up inside? And how do we address it? Is it a people issue? Is it a system issue? Is it a money issue? Where is it? And let's talk it through. Let me give you another example. One of our employees was having triplets. This was 5 years ago now. And the staff, she wasn't in the room because of a doctor. And she might, I don't know, was she in the room or not? And the staff said, Terry, what are we going to do? I mean, she's having triplets. And I said, well, first thing I want to know is who at the table has experience with someone having triplets? And they said, no, nobody. And I said, I don't either. So we're going to take this one day at a time and embrace this as a team. We don't know how. We don't know if we'll lose her. We don't know if she'll be on bed rest starting tomorrow. We could have a moment's notice. Remember that perfect storm I talked about? So I'm always thinking about that. And I said, I don't want any judgment because we don't know what we're doing right now. I mean, if I did, I'd talk about it. If any of you did, you'd talk about it. We don't. So sometimes them knowing that we just need one day at a time and do this together and be good to each other is the way to go. And talking about the elephants in the room. Yeah. Right?
And Tina and Sean, one other thing that's of critical importance to us and is a non-negotiable is that we believe that in business, we all have 3 customers, not one. And our 3 customers are equal in importance. And we have to be in a position to serve all three of those customers. And so the obvious customer, you know, in a salon, it's the one that's in your chair, right? That's the obvious customer. The second customer is that we are all customer to each other, those service providers, those people that make up the team and the staff of the organization. We're customers to each other. We all come with needs. We all come with feelings and with our person, and we need to be treated as a customer. You talk about what makes people leave a team business and go independent, so to speak. It's because they didn't feel like a customer. In the same way that we leave a business when we don't feel like we're a customer.
Yeah.
And the third customer are the people who serve us. So it could be the distributors and suppliers. It could be the plumber, the mail person, the delivery person, our insurance person, whoever handles payroll. It's those people that aren't every day in the salon and those people that aren't bringing money to the salon per se, but they serve us and they are also our customers. So
we want the mailman to say, this is one of my favorite stops.
Yeah.
Right?
And the delivery
or
person.
the UPS driver,
Yeah.
or all the manufacturers when they come in say, boy, you always go the extra mile for us. Yes. So when you have an employee that's great with their customers love them, but the staff says they're hard to do business with, that's tough. Or if they say, another non-negotiable is ours is you've got to believe in the decisions and support the lines that we represent.
Wow. So we have three customers. We've got the client, we've got each other, and we've got our vendors. That's brilliant. I didn't even think of that. And so ask yourself that question every day. Did I go the extra mile today for my customers? I love that. You know, how did I serve them? As we bring this to a close, and I want to thank you both so much for being a part of this. This is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, we're home. This is no makeup
Tina
Monday.
and Sean, we love you guys. It's
We
an
do.
honor to be part of anything that you're a part of.
And thank you all the salon owners that are on live today, and also
Do they have any questions for us that we need to?
Recording. Yeah, I don't see any questions, but if you do, go ahead and pop it in. If we can take a few minutes as well too with doing that. But as we close this out, and I love that Sean started this out of, you know, being transparent, what it is, what it isn't. You know, I think it's just so important as we close this out, because really focusing on our leadership, you know, and what is leadership? You know, it's our emotional and mental health, really, when we think about it. It's our attitude. There's so many facets. And I love that you said, Terri, that leadership is a funny thing. What's the best way to grow your own leadership? What would you recommend to every salon owner right now to grow their leadership?
My big thing is to find out why you lead the way you do, or why you avoid leadership the way you do, right? I mean, there's reasons behind it. We found out some more. I mean, we've been doing this. I've been in a leadership role since I was, gosh, I can go back and.
You were probably 5 years old, if I know you.
On the playground, yeah.
Yeah, probably. And so I learned a lot about that. Just these 3 days. And we went 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
10 hours a day, intense. And it was really, really good. So we have to keep being a student also. When you can get in touch with why you do what you do, then maybe you can find out why others do what they do.
And I think what I would say is that I would suggest a commitment to ongoing learning, lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I had a chance to listen last night to a podcast, and I know all of us are fans of John Gordon. And I don't know if you caught the podcast that John did with Dr. Daniel Amen, who has spoken.
So good.
He's spoken to us, of course, in our school family. And he said that he went from hearing about the pandemic to calling it the pandemic squared, which the pandemic squared was COVID-19 and mental health. Mental health was the square, to pandemic cubed, which is bringing in the racial unrest and that exists right now, and all the fear that goes along with that. And I thought, what a brilliant way to look at it. You know, these are clear, and I don't think we're really necessarily thinking about what is the effect of COVID on our staff's psyche, on their mental health. What's the effect of COVID on their financial well-being? And everybody's bringing that's now become part of who they are. And it's a pandemic that's yet to totally surface. Mm-hmm. That will come out in the next year or 2 years or 5 years, or who knows when the children of this pandemic are adults. But the other thing is, and look at it, here's proof. This racial unrest and Black Lives Matter and equality, that's something that's been manifesting itself for 400 years. Mm-hmm. And right now it's at when I read a story this morning that said that Portland, Oregon is in their 51st straight day of demonstrations and protests. Wow. 51st straight day of protests. We can't, as salon professionals, think that we are excluded from any of those three pandemics, because we are dealing with and living with and in all three of those pandemics.
Every year you'll be tested in a different way. Every year. Yeah. I mean, I used to say every 100,000 you grow in business. It's almost as if you have to start your business all over again and reinvent it. But this year has been probably one of the hardest years of my life. During COVID, I mean, if you think about it, we had to make a decision on some extra support for one of our children. And that in itself created some stress for us. And
huge.
And then on top of it, my mother was living with us and growing weaker. And I lost her April 27th. And then COVID, all the businesses were down. And I thought, what is going on? I mean, I couldn't get my head around that perfect storm. And lightning was coming at me at every direction. And it's funny, during the pandemic, she wanted to be buried in our hometown. So we went home and if anyone I wanted to give a proper farewell to was my mom, right? And I was unable to do that. It looked like she didn't have any friends, and it just made me so sad. And I said to her, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I know she's fine with it. I mean, because that's how she was. She wouldn't want to be fussed over. But here's the hardest part. After the burial, okay, bye. You couldn't have a cup of coffee. You couldn't have a luncheon. You couldn't do a celebration of life. And so we just left the cemetery and everyone went their own way. And do we ever do that to our staffs? Do we ever leave a meeting and not make sure celebration of salon, celebration of life takes place? We just get up, okay, goodbye. Wow, it was an emptiness that I can't even put into words. Steve said that we drove there. I didn't talk the whole way there. I didn't talk the whole way home. I was in a state of silence. Do leaders do that sometimes in their own businesses? Mm-hmm. Right? And so we have to be really, really careful. I mean, it was the worst year of my life. And, one day I was at home by myself. I mean, Steve was trying to keep everyone away from me, and a knock at the door, and came one of my dear employees, right? And she said, I brought you a cup of soup. And we sat outside and talked for about an hour. And we don't realize how much time we really spend with people every day. That maybe maybe we're not with family 40 hours a week, but we are with our teams 40 hours a week. And they know us more than we even let on sometimes. And so that's huge. I couldn't have gotten through without my sister and my husband, right? I couldn't have gotten through, or people just checking on me. I didn't have anything to say, but that's the point I want to make. How often are we really saying to people, how are you? How are you?
You know what? I'm so glad you said that, Terry, because one of the key things in this Black Lives Matter that is translatable to every single human being is we have a need to be heard and we have a need to be seen. And whatever those definitions are for you, that you need to be heard. And sometimes you need for somebody to say, Sean, I hear you.
Or how are you?
Yeah. And it's how we show up. And I think that hairdressers behind the chair do that naturally. But that's where the 3 customers come in. Do we do that to each other? Does your team know that you see them? Does your team know that they've been heard? And that's, I got to say, that's so much of my time right now are those 2 things with the teams at the school,
With his
the
wife?
future professionals at the school,
With his
with my
wife?
wife, with our team at
Add it to the
TSC.
list.
And with his wife?
But really think that would be my challenge.
Yeah.
That would be my hopeful takeaway for everyone here is that you contemplate, what does it mean to be seen and what does it mean to be heard?
Love
And
that.
why are so many people craving that right now?
Yeah. And does everyone feel that way? You know, does everyone feel like they belong? And how are you contributing to that, to making people feel like they belong? Because that's the basic human need, right? I want to feel like I belong, because if I don't feel like I belong, I'm gone.
Yeah, I don't know
I'm out of here.
I don't know how I fit here.
Yes.
Right?
They want to fit. I love that, Steve. That's so powerful. And yeah, that's a challenge to myself, Sean, to the rest of all the salon owners listening to this today.
And why? And the challenge is because we're busy.
Yeah. Busy doing what? Yeah. It's all about priority management. This is important. And Steve, this is everything. So thank you so much. I never know the direction that these are going to go. And I just kind of wait. I just stop and wait and see what's going to happen. And this is exactly what people needed to hear. So thank you both so much for being on.
Thank you for having us. We're honored, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for
Have a great
joining
day.
us. Bye, everyone. We'll see you
Bye-bye.
next
Bye,
week,
everyone.
next Monday, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Bye, everyone. Bye, Sean.
Take care. Thank you.